What up, TCK Potters? Welcome back to the program. Sky and Bobby with you from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 453. You can catch us both on Twitter at our name handles, Sky Guasco and Bobby Lamarco. Also, please make sure to follow, subscribe, like, give a share to all of the fantasy-focused networks as well. We're streaming live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitch. And, of course, as you saw at the beginning of the video, make sure you catch us Sunday mornings to be a part of our live stream for Start and Sit. We're 2 weeks in. We've had incredible interaction with all the viewers and listeners, and we would love for you to be a part of it as well if you're not already. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. every single Sunday morning, streaming live right here on the fantasy-focused YouTube page. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any actions for Week 3 Start Sit. Bobo, it was an absolutely crazy morning on Sunday. We, got up again early for us, for you and I on the West Coast, 7 a.m. getting it in. The boys are ready to go, though. We had a great 3-hour session. We get into Sunday morning, and it was kind of a dud. First half of fantasy interaction Sunday morning was kind of crazy. Quick takeaway from Sunday a little bit. I kind of had not as exciting first half, and then the afternoon games for me were very exciting with a bunch of thrilling endings, though. So one takeaway here from Sunday action.
Well, Terrace Marshall hit on his over, so I was pretty happy after the 1 p.m. games. As long as I hit my call, so far 2 for 2 on the pod, so that's all I care about. For the most part, it's been fine. It's been a little frustrating. Guys like Allen Robinson have been extremely frustrating. He dropped a touchdown this week, so we'll talk about that in player trends. But overall, it's funny how I draft kind of the same. I have 2-0 teams that are going to be top in points, and I also have 0-2 teams that are bottom of the league. I feel like I draft the same, and somehow it just ends up that way. So
right.
But overall, that brings me up to someone like Allen Robinson for me. I'm starting to get a little crazy intense, which is why we have a segment called Sky's Trade Target of the Week, which Sky just brought up, is brought to you by our Sunday Start Shit show. I always say, it sounds like I say shit all the time. It starts sit, everybody. But hey, if you want to shit too, that's fine. But Sky, listen, every week I get you and I get Buck, and I want to see a trade target. Buck last week hit us with Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Sure enough, that worked out pretty good. So this week, tell us who's a guy that you're kind of maybe trying to buy low, or even if he's performing well, willing to buy up and trade for, spend the premium on. Who's your guy you're thinking about?
Yeah, so one guy I'm looking to acquire, which might seem – people have mixed feelings on this player, but it's Chris Godwin, wide receiver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 13 targets, 9 receptions, 105-1. Opening night Thursday to kick off the NFL season against Dallas. Comes back. Just 5 targets, but 4 catches, 62 yards, but another score. Gronkowski, 2 touchdowns in each of the first 2 games. Antonio Brown went off week 1, but didn't in week 2. Mike Evans, dud in week 1, went off last week. The only consistent wide receiver in this core is Chris Godwin. So that's somebody I'm looking to acquire. Obviously, Tom Brady turning back the clock in a major way, looking absolutely fantastic so far. And one player I'm looking to flip, which I think you would easily, in my opinion, be able to make this trade, and I would do it. I'm a 49er fan. I watch the 49ers very carefully, and Debo Samuel has been playing out of his mind so far. I would be looking to move off of Debo Samuel personally. If you have him on your squad and you don't want to, no problem. He's a great player. Keep him. But if you're looking to move somebody to upgrade, I think right now you can upgrade from Debo Samuel. 12 targets, 9 catches, 189-1 in that first week. But a lot of that came on a busted coverage by the Lions. And in week 2 last week, 8 targets, 6 catches, 93 yards against the Eagles here. So 27 fantasy points, 13 fantasy points in half PPR. This is a player who has injury concerns. Brandon Ayuk obviously had the week 1 dud last week, got a little bit more involved, but I think he will be more forward. They haven't even used George Kittle yet, and the run game has been wish-wash with all the injuries. I do think eventually they will not fade out, but they will start using other options here other than Debo Samuel. So sell him high if you can. Chris Godwin would be a guy that I would be looking to acquire if I possibly can, because I know that offense is dynamite with Brady, and he is the consistent player in that offense. Now, on kind of a similar topic here with the trades, there's some players here on the hot seat as well, right? These are players that you might be looking to trade for and buy low, or trade high after a better performance this week from week 1. So I'm going to list off a number of players at each position, and we're going to give that to Bob to see how he feels put some players on the hot seat. And this segment is brought to you by our good friends at Bomb Banana Hot Sauce. Banana based, not banana flavored. You know, we've been repping them all summer long. Incredible hot sauce, both with the white label, which is kind of that standard, nice, easy, smooth flavor, not very hot. And then you have the Muy Muy, which is the red label. That one is a little bit more spicy, but still absolutely delicious. I made a post about it over the weekend, put it fresh on my eggs. I put it on pizza. You can put it on anything you're feeling, some wings. And if you're looking for Bucky's recipe, Friday nights into Saturday, you're looking for something to put on all of those great dishes, Bomb Banana Hot Sauce would be a great thing to add there. So shouts out to our friends at Bomb Banana Hot Sauce. These are some players on the hot seat, Bob. I'm going to run them to you here and just see maybe a quick comment or two on each of these players. Then we're going to get into week 3 waiver wire pickups. And then, of course, our player trends for each of the squads. All right, players on the hot seat, one way or another. Are you panicking or are you going to stay patient with Justin Herbert?
Oh, patience. Yeah, 100%. Once we get into the latter half of this week, it's going to be key to kind of look at the early season schedule, who they faced, and who's coming up. So I think Herbert, just between Mike Williams emerging, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, too much talent. Even Jared Cook looks like he has a little bit of that fountain of youth going on. So I'm staying patient with Herbert.
Ryan Tannehill.
I'm going to panic just a little bit, but the matchups haven't been great either. Surprisingly, the Cardinals secondary has looked pretty good. Seahawks, I brought them up. Actually, Buck and me talked about this in our players to fade was Tannehill. Derrick Henry got some work in the pass game last week. So
6 targets from a big man.
Woo! So I'm panicking a little bit. He's not, I guess, the MVP candidate we thought he'd be. All
right, let's go to the running backs here. Zeke Elliott.
Patience all day. I mean, he was fine. I mean, he scored 76 yards and a touchdown. It wasn't like he was a complete dud. Pollard looked really good. I'm not going to sit here and say he did not, but at the same time, Zeke got his, and I'm not going to sweat it yet.
Your boy Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, this one's a little disappointing so far, but I'm just going to hold on just a little bit longer. His usage is still elite. He's still getting a boatload of carries, and he's still heavily involved. He's still out. He had more routes last week than J.D. McKissick. McKissick just got the looks, but he's still out there running routes, which is good. And I think he's going to catch up at some point, and the production is going to follow.
This one's really tough because you were super duper high, as a lot of people were, for a breakout from CEH. Clyde Edwards-Helaire of the Chiefs, man. We haven't seen it. There was a little bit of patience in week 1. Week 2 was even worse. Great game last night. Everybody was involved except for CEH. How do you feel about your man?
The Browns' run defense has looked good. I mean, look at what Mark Ingram did week 1 and look at him in week 2, right? He was a complete dud. And then they faced the Ravens, and the Ravens also have a solid run defense. I'm not going to jump ship. I think he's actually a target for me for buys. I'm looking at just his week 3 matchup for this upcoming week, and he's playing the Chargers, who just led up a boatload of rushing yards to Tony Pollard and Zeke. So I think this is the week. Hold the fort, play him again. If he duds, then hey, we were wrong, and we move on, and he's more of a matchup-based RB3.
And potential trade target for Bob versus selling the farm here. All right, a couple wide receivers here and then 2 10s. A.J. Brown, big day for Julio, finally came out. We were talking about him in the pregame show. I went with Julio a number of times, and it was just kind of like, I got to have faith in my man. Huge day. Should have been bigger with that touchdown that was called out. Big day for Julio, but A.J. Brown, 4 drops, which is unreal. I think he bounces back, but people are really panicking about A.J. Brown. How about you?
Yeah, the drops are a thing, but I don't think it doesn't carry over week to week, right? So, I think the bigger issue for me is, can these guys produce together? That's what I want to see. I want to see a game where Julio goes off and A.J. Brown gets his. So it's been 1-1 so far. So I think that's something to monitor. Hopefully they could both produce at the same time, because if not, that could be a problem spot all year.
Calvin Ridley, huge expectations. A lot of people, including yours truly, thought a bold prediction might be he could be the number 1 wide receiver overall on the season, being the true one with Julio going to Tennessee. Caught a touchdown last week, but we haven't really seen it. How do you feel about Ridley so far?
7 for 63 and 1's fine against Tampa Bay. I mean, Tampa Bay, listen, they did let up a lot of production in week 1 to the Cowboys, which, for what it's worth, obviously that's an elite team too. But I think 7 for 63 and 1 is fine. And it's more concerning that the offense doesn't look. It started to gel a little bit in that second and third quarter, then it fell apart with those turnovers by Matt Ryan. But 7 for 63 and 1 against the Tampa Bay secondary, I think is fine. They get the Giants this week, who actually have let up some production, but James Bradbury and Adoree Jackson should be a better duo than they've been so far. But I'm still riding with Calvin Ridley.
Man, Terry McLaurin ripped up James Bradbury last week, so we'll see what happens here with Calvin Ridley. All right, Robert Woods, man. Our boy Cooper Kupp, you and I have been, drinking the Kupp all summer long. We both had Kupp higher than Woods coming in preseason. So far, that's worked out for you and I. Cooper Kupp is absolutely phenomenal first 2 games. Robert Woods, though, I expected to also be top 12. Wide receiver 48 in half PPR in back-to-back weeks here. Obviously, I think that goes up eventually, but how do you feel about Robert Woods, man? He doesn't feel like a must-start right now, and he certainly should be.
Well, he ran less routes than Van Jefferson again, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I think, Robert Woods got in the end zone. I think overall for me, I'm not sweating too much. The pass volume hasn't been needed yet. I mean, back-to-back weeks, like Stafford had 30 attempts last week, which is extremely low. That's a 16-game pace of under 500 attempts. That's not normal. It's going to be closer to 600, my apologies, for the season on that pace. I'm expecting more pass volume when these games get a little more competitive for the Rams. I think Robert Woods is going to be just fine.
All right. Let's go 2 tight ends, and we'll move on here to our week 3 waiver pickups. George Kittle, drafted as the number 3. A lot of people had him number 2. I'm a Niner fan, and I last minute in my preseason rankings, for the record, to look back on next year, I flipped and put Darren Waller number 2. So far, I'm glad that I did that. George Kittle, not really used. Now, we talk about this a lot with him and Gronkowski and other guys. He's such a dominant run blocker, Bobby, that Kyle Shanahan sees him as a very athletic offensive tackle that can catch a couple of passes. In fantasy, we just see him rumbling, stiff arming, shoving people around, but he's never been a high volume guy, never been a touchdown guy. Are you sticking with George Kittle, or are you trying to move off the name brand right now?
His average depth of target was -2 yards.
Dude, Debo Samuel last year was -2.
Okay, I'm going to read my player trend section. He had more yards after the catch than actual receiving yards last week. I don't know what that is about, but I mean, what do they do? I mean, Kyle Shanahan trusts him. I do, but this is weird to me. I don't know what's going on. That's a problem. I don't think you're expecting too much from a tight end to get all those yards after the catch. He needs to start being targeted more down the field.
I absolutely agree.
A little bit of panic.
All right, and another one, kind of that next tier, though, right? It was the big 3, and then you had Hawkinson, Pitts, if you want to put him in there, and then Aaron Andrews. No, sorry. Shouts out to our girl Aaron Andrews. Another one, though, that yet to be involved here. It's just run extra here in the first 2 games. It's early, but I have Andrews on a number of teams, and I'm starting to panic a little bit here.
I think it's fine. I mean, 5 for 50. So I'll admit, this is a huge miss by us during the Sunday live shorts. And look at Mark Andrews' production versus Kansas City. It has not been good. It's been very bad. So he actually had one of his better games against Kansas City last week with that 5 for 50. So actually, I'm a little more encouraged than you normally would on the surface. He was like a 3 for 30 for 8 targets. It was bad. So he actually performed decent against Kansas City. The Ravens in week 3, let's see, they play. Sorry, I'm all on the spot here. The Lions. So I'm thinking he's going to be fine.
Yeah, Robert Tonyan getting a touchdown against the Lions here on Monday Night Football this week. So looking better for Andrews moving forward, but that's a guy that I'm a little bit nervous about moving forward. And I know this sounds kind of crazy preseason, but right now today, Bobby, would you rather have George Kittle or Mark Andrews moving forward?
Why do you ask me these questions? I don't like being on the spot.
I'm putting you on the hot seat, bro. I saved the mooey for last. You know what I mean?
Man, you know what? I'm going to stick with Kittle. I just think that he led the team in routes. I think it's going to happen at some point. Something's going to change. That weird ADOT thing is just something weird.
Yeah, I agree there. And Mark Andrews is also running more routes than he has in his entire career. So that will go up as well. Hollywood Brown right now playing very well. They do have Rashad Bateman coming back. Sammy Watkins is still healthy, plus the run game, and Lamar. Tough to navigate that pass attack for the Ravens, but they should be great. And of course, a huge win over the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Jordan and I will get into all the game recaps on tomorrow's show. All right, Bob, let's transition here to our week 3 waiver wire pickups. Last week, we went through about 20 plus names. It was week 1, a lot of scramble. A lot of people were looking for a ton of different names to get the rosters. Moving forward, we're going to narrow that down, right? We're going to focus on 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, 2 defenses, and of course, 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. Running backs and wide receivers, we might have more for you as they pop up. But for today, we're going to go through 2 of each position. I'm going to give you the name. I'm going to give you the Fantasy Pros consensus ranking overall of where they rank these players overall in their rankings, not per position, but per everybody. Give you a couple stats and let you know who they are picking up and get your thoughts on these players. So let's move on to the week 3 waiver wire pickups. And I'm going to start with the quarterbacks and we'll work our way down. 2 quarterbacks I'm looking at this week, Bob. First, Derrick Carr. And call me crazy, but is Derrick Carr not in the top 3 conversation for early season MVP? I know it's week 2. I know we always have guys like this that pop up, and Derrick Carr did it in 2016 as well before. Derrick Carr has looked absolutely phenomenal. 400 plus in week 1, 350 plus in week 2. 21% rostered right now, so 79% availability across all leagues. Fantasy Pros has him as their number 9 player overall. 29 points against Baltimore in week 1, 33 last week at Pittsburgh. He's got Miami, the Chargers, and the Bears coming up. How do you feel about Derrick Carr?
I mean, I've been a big Derrick Carr guy. I've always said that he's a lot better than it looks like. He doesn't have talent around him.
He's had no help since Amari Cooper and Crabtree. I agree.
100%. He's turned Darren Waller into an all-pro tight end, and you can't do that if you're just some schmuck back there. Plus, Ruggs and Edwards are finally taking over as the 2 and 3, which that's what they needed. They needed that talent. They can't. Hunter Renfro's a nice player if you need a first down conversion on 3rd and 5, but he's not a guy you want out there leading you in routes. So it's good to see that Ruggs had a big game last week, and also Edwards is out there now. They have more confidence. So I think those guys are big threats. The Dolphins matchup to me, listen, the Josh Allen, they basically just dominated that game. He only threw for like 179 yards. The week before that, Mac Jones did fine, but he only scored 1 passing touchdown. So I'm not sure if the Miami Dolphins are the worst defense. I think they're okay against the pass. But I think it's a good speculation pickup, especially if you had a guy like Tannehill as your QB1. I like Derrick Carr as an option to pick up and see how those guys go week to week.
A number of injuries in week 2 as well to quarterback. So if people are missing time and you need that second quarterback, look at Derrick Carr. Another one I'm looking at here, Sam Darnold played absolutely fantastic. 2-0 so far with the Panthers right now. 24 fantasy points versus the Jets in his revenge game in week 1. 24 again last week versus the Saints. 15th ranked player for Fantasy Pros overall. Only rostered in 11% of leagues right now. Available in 89% of leagues. He's available everywhere. Great quarterback 2. A steal as a quarterback 3. How do you feel about my boy Sammy D?
Well, the Texans is a good matchup, short week. I'm a little concerned because we don't know how bad that Texans offense is going to be with Davis Mills. It could be one of those games where they win 21-7 or 21-10 because the Panthers defense showed up against the Saints last week and they shut down a red hot Jameis Winston. So I don't know if I'm all like Sammy D. I think he's been great. I think he's got a great receiving core. But I'm a little concerned from a streaming standpoint because I don't know if they're going to need to do a bunch against a Houston team down Tyrod Taylor.
All right, let's move on to the running backs here. I'm going to start with Cordero Patterson, who is a wide receiver in everybody's mind. He's a kick returner first, then a wide receiver, but eligible, at least in Yahoo leagues, eligible on Sleeper as well, to be your running back or your wide receiver. And I'll tell you right now, Mike Davis is a plotter. As I mentioned preseason, we'll get into all the preseason stuff in the recap after the Super Bowl here, but I'm not surprised at the ineffectiveness of Mike Davis so far. It's been Cordero Patterson taking carries for the Falcons, who has had that spark, obviously catch the ball out of the backfield. 24 PPR points against Tampa Bay on Sunday, 7 rush attempts in each of his first 2 games, 8 total targets, number 4 player for Fantasy Pros so far overall in waiver wire pickups for week 3. And like Sam Darnold, only rostered in 11% of leagues. Is Cordero Patterson the running back to roster in Atlanta?
It's funny because he actually produced better in the pass game. If you look at his rushing stats from last week, they were not that impressive. They were actually not good. Mike Davis outrushed him pretty convincingly last week in that game against Tampa Bay. Mike Davis showed a little bit against that tough Tampa Bay front, but this is a 55-45. This is not Mike Davis. We all thought Mike Davis was going to be like this bell cow, 70% usage guy, and it's not the case. It's closer to that 55 range because Cordero Patterson has shown enough, especially in the pass game. But last week, the week 1, he averaged 7 yards per carry. So, I think this is definitely someone speculative to add because for some reason they like him and he's getting the work. And if you have Mike Davis, then you should be rostering Cordero Patterson because it could flip at any time.
And he is the handcuff. It's not Wayne Gallman, the traditional running back. It's Cordero Patterson, who's played pretty well against some big defenses. So just a speculative ad there, kind of a weird name to run in the running backs, but he is a running back technically, and the number one running back, according to Fantasy Pros, to pick up this week. Another one, and I know it's been kind of a joke all summer, somebody that I've been repping pretty hard is Kenny Gainwell. He's the number 8 player for Fantasy Pros this week to pick up, rostered in 32% of leagues, so available to you in 68% of leagues, 50 carries and 6 targets and a touchdown over the first 2 games. Sanders, in his respect, Miles Sanders, 28 carries, so just 13 more. And I say just 13 because Sanders is supposed to be far and away the best running back. And volume-wise, I guess he is, but efficiency not so much. And 7 targets and yet to score a touchdown. I know it's only 2 weeks. Sanders is definitely that number 1 guy, but it's not Boston Scott. It's Kenny Gainwell. Kenny Gainwell was somebody I've been repping a lot over the summer to roster. I've got him in all my rookie leagues where I could. Is he somebody to stash on your bench? And I believe that if Sanders were to go down, hopefully he does not, if he were to go down, Kenny Gainwell could certainly fill a 3-down back, which they probably won't employ, but he would be that number 1 to run early downs and as well. How do you feel about Kenny G so far?
Okay. Miles Sanders is the better back. I know you've been a big Kenny Gainwell guy, but if you want to talk efficiency, Miles Sanders blown him away in rushing yards per carry, yards per reception, but the thing is this, Gainwell is that Nyheim Hines role in this offense. Now with Jalen Hurts as a mobile quarterback, I'm not sure how much that is going to really matter yet, but I think the key is you're right. Miles Sanders has been prone to injury. He's missed games all the time. And as soon as he goes down, Kenny Gainwell looks to be the guy that's going to step right into that role. It's not Boston Scott. So the fact that he passed Boston Scott early on in the season and already became the number 2, I think that's a good sign for Kenny Gainwell. But this is Miles Sanders' backfield still. But at the same time, he's worth a speculative ad, especially because of Miles Sanders' injury history.
Let's move on to the wide receivers here. The number 1 for Fantasy Pros are wide receivers here, and that's going to be Rondeal Moore, number 1 for Fantasy Pros this week from Arizona. Phenomenal game. Honestly, should have been a much bigger game as well than his stat line. He's available in 74% of leagues. 11 fantasy points for Tennessee as a rookie in his debut in week 1. 31 fantasy points last week against Minnesota. One of the most heady plays I've ever seen as well, certainly by a younger player. I'll break it down really quickly if you didn't actually see it. They're charging down the field. They're trying to get into field goal range at the end of the first half. They do a dump off to Rondeal Moore. He sprints for about 8 yards. Should have gone out of bounds to stop the clock. He doesn't. He coils back inside, runs another about 10 yards, gets out of bounds with 1 second left, sets up Matt Prater for a 62-yard field goal attempt. They do make that play, which is absolutely fantastic. And then the Cardinals end up winning the game by 1 on a missed field goal by the Vikings. So if not for that play, they might lose that game outright. Rondeal Moore, 7 catches on 8 targets and 114 yards and a touchdown versus Minnesota. So absolute player. We knew he was great coming out of Purdue. It's just the injury concern. Are you willing to spend your number 1 waiver claim, as Fantasy Pros would have you believe, on Rondeal Moore this week?
Yeah, he's the truth, man. This kid is awesome. So this is a couple key factors about him. Number 1, he led the team in actual targets last week with 8. He led the team in slot targets last week, which I like a lot, him getting in interior work. He also, his routes in week 1, he actually ran a route on 39% of dropbacks. That jumped to 59% in week 2. That's the direction we like to see. Must grab, love him. And he, at some point, he's going to pass up AJ Green and become like the main outside guy at some point. I don't think Kirk's going to be the guy who passes. I think it's going to be AJ Green, but I love this kid. 100% in.
I agree. 100% in as well. Darnell Mooney, another guy we've been repping all summer long, I think has a bigger chance to really elevate his game now if Andy Dalton were to miss significant time with an apparent knee ankle injury he suffered running out of bounds in his own will. Non-contact injury, you hate to see that. Usually worst case scenario when it's non-contact, but yet to get a report, at least via this podcast. If we have an update, we'll let you know. But before that, I don't know just right now. Number 3 player, according to Fantasy Pros this week, Darnell Mooney, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears, 47% rostered. So that's just underneath our 50% threshold that we kind of present you with. He's rostered in most leagues, almost half, but maybe available in yours. So take a look. 15 targets over the first 2 games for him. And again, now he gets Fields. I mentioned at exhaustion over the offseason here, the efficiency downfield was not there with Foles and Trubisky last year for Darnell Mooney. Second in the NFL in unrealized air yards. Basically, that's fancy term for he was targeted a ton deep down the field, and the QB play was inaccurate, and he wasn't able to capitalize on that. Fields has made a couple rookie mistakes early when he's had limited play. But if he's that guy moving forward with consistency, gets first-team reps in practice, starts working with the 1s and the 2 with Darnell Mooney and Robinson, I think they all elevate their game. How do you feel about Mooney? He's already on all of my rosters, but if he's available in your league, Bobby, are you picking him up?
He led the team in routes and targets last week, which is good. I just think that this pass volume, if it goes to Justin Fields, I think Fields is going to run a lot. I think he's going to be very mobile. I think it's going to bring down the pass volume. This week, they're playing against a Browns team. This is fine, not the scariest matchup, but at the same time, I think Allen Robinson at some point is going to emerge and take over that 1 spot again. So I'm going to tentatively say no. I might be off this one just because I think Fields, if he plays, less pass volume, and I think Allen Robinson is going to become that alpha once again, and as soon as this week when they play the Browns.
Speaking of those Browns, our first tight end here is Austin Hooper, number 18 overall for Fantasy Pros in Week 3 waiver pickups. He's caught all 8 targets on the year. Odell Beckham been out the first 2 weeks, might be out again this week. We'll see. And Jarvis Landry set to miss time as well, never misses time. Jarvis Landry now out. Is Austin Hooper a streaming tight end you're willing to take? Again, available in only 51% of leagues. Like Mooney, he's rostered in half. But if he's available, is he a streamer you're looking to take on?
I think so because of the injury to Jarvis Landry. I mean, Landry going down, he immediately saw more work last week. I think 5 for 40 in that range. I think in a PPR league, he's going to get more work. They're going to move more 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets with Bryant and Njoku because they don't have receivers. Odell's coming back hopefully this week, but who knows how he's going to be his first game back. This week against the Bears has been a little susceptible to tight ends overall, but I think this is going to be I think it's worth a shot. So I think Austin Hooper is someone that you could pick up because of that Landry injury.
Another possible streaming tight end would be Juwan Johnson, tight end, touchdown dependent, touchdown upside, right? We saw that in Week 1 when he had 2. He gets New England. I think New England's going to be focused on stopping the best player. The best player is Alvin Kamara. The middle of the field might be open a little bit more. How do you feel about Juwan Johnson? You repped him preseason. He's available in 75% of leagues. Adam Troutman is certainly there as well. But how do you feel about Juwan Johnson?
His usage went up this week. He actually ran more routes than Adam Troutman, which we talked about. It might have been a game flow thing. When they're down, he might play a little bit more. And it looks like when they're up, it's going to be Adam Troutman blocking and all that stuff. This week they played the Patriots. I think you're right. I think the Patriots overall have been very good against tight ends, but they're good against the best player on your team, right? So it's going to be, we're taking away your number 1. And I think Juwan Johnson's not that guy just yet. So he might be able to sneak in some production. Mike Gesicki had a decent day, bounced back a little bit last week versus the Patriots. So I think it's not a bad pickup.
All right, let's go to some streaming DSTs really quickly, and then we'll move on to some player trends for each squad. Carolina Panthers get the Houston Texans without Tyrod Taylor. Now they're going to get Davis Mills, most likely, rookie out of Stanford, who I actually like a lot in the draft process, but I don't think he's ready for NFL action just yet. They have 10 sacks in their first 2 games. 3 interceptions. They're playing very well. Again, as I mentioned with Sam Darnold, they're 2-0. Panthers are quite impressive right now. Just 2 years ago, they had 8. The entire draft was spent on defense. Where 2 years later, a lot of those guys have grown in their position. They had 9 consecutive, if you count 2020's draft as well, picks on defense. The 7th overall position or player, according to Fantasy Pros, the number 1 DST available in 84% of leagues. So they're available on all your waiver wires going up against Houston. Tyrod or not, I'm picking up the Panthers this week.
Yes, I agree. And I got to take a retraction. I apologize. The Patriots played the Dolphins in Week 1. Mike Gesicki got shut down. So my fault. That's my bad, everybody. But I call myself out. But the Panthers, go get the Panthers. I think, honestly, I would even spend a waiver priority just to get a win because they're going to dominate against Davis Mills. They are an underrated defense, especially with those 2 cornerbacks now with J.C. Horn and Dante Jackson looking pretty good.
I totally agree. Another one you might look at is the Arizona Cardinals. They had a rough day against Minnesota, but let's flash back to Week 1 when they played a terrible offensive line. Chandler Jones, 5 sacks, 3 of those in the first quarter, 5 sacks overall in Week 1. Now they get Jacksonville, bad offensive line, available in 59% of your leagues. Is Arizona a team you're looking for to stream on DST as well?
Sky, 10 out of 10 on these picks for defense. I love both of them. The Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence is fun, but he's turnover prone early on in his career. My boy, James O'Shaughnessy, my sweet angel, rest in peace, is hurt.
Yeah.
So forget it. At this point. And then also Laviska Shenault is banged up, so that could be a disaster. I like this pick as well.
I didn't want to bring up James O'Shaughnessy because I want to keep a positive vibe. I didn't want to lose you early here in this show, but now that you brought it up, unfortunately, James O'Shaughnessy down. I don't think for the entire season, but not looking good there for Jacksonville. So maybe Tyler Eifert comes back and gets an opportunity if Tebow doesn't.
1 route, 1 reception, 24 yards last week. He was
Baller.
on his way becoming the next Travis Kelce.
Man. Unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen. All right, those again are our week 3 waiver wire pickups. Quick recap. And we're going to get into some player. Darnold at quarterback, Cordero Patterson, Kenny Gainwell at running back, Rondeal Moore, Darnell Mooney at wide receiver, Austin Hooper and Juwan Johnson at tight end, and then the Carolina Panthers and Arizona Cardinals at DST. Couple names very quickly, no analysis, but just throwing a couple names at the wall here. If still available, Tim Patrick caught that touchdown. Henry Ruggs caught a deep touchdown as well. J.D. McKissick deep down the field if you need a running back. KJ Osborne seems to be the truth there in Minnesota, available in 98% of leagues. Dalvin Cook was injured a couple of times in this game. Make sure you have Alexander Madison on the squad there. Bobby's boy, Zach Moss, might be a thing after he gets active finally. Teddy Bridgewater and Daniel Jones also worth a roster spot there if you have the room. Okay, let's move on here. We're going to get out of the week 3 waiver wire pickups, and we're going to dive into a quick commercial break and a shout out to our friends at the Jersey Jungle. Then we're going to get into player trends. Y'all know how we do this. Jersey Jungle on Instagram. Find them on Instagram at the Jersey Jungle. Use the promo code TCK to receive 10% off of 1 or 2 jerseys, 15% off of 3 jerseys. You can see behind me tonight, I've got my man Julio Jones. Huge final, we'll call it a debut because week 1 didn't really count. Huge coming out party there for Julio Jones on the Titans. I got the Falcons jersey because I don't have a Titans one yet, but one of my favorite players of all time will be behind me forevermore. Once again, go on to Instagram, the Jersey Jungle. Use the promo code TCK to receive 10% off of 1 or 2 jerseys, 15% off of 3. All of your Stitch and Twill, high-quality, game-authentic jerseys. All sports. NFL, of course, is the hotness right now, but baseball playoffs are coming up. The NBA offseason is right now. NHL jerseys as well. They also have international jerseys for those of you into international football and soccer as well. So check it out, the Jersey Jungle on Instagram at the Jersey Jungle. All right, Bobo, I'm going to turn it over to you, man, here for the second segment, and we're getting into player trends for each squad. So you have a note or 2 for each team as we did last week.
Yeah.
You kick off, you give me your nuggets, and I'll reply back to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say I was down 40 points in 2 leagues. I got Aaron Jones. He's got 34 right now, 31. So I'm
3 touchdowns.
Now, I'm feeling like it's going to be fool's gold. I'm probably going to lose by 2 points. It's going to break my heart. But let's talk about week 2 player trends for this week. I think this is key. First thing we always talk about is dropback volume because we want to make sure that we're keeping expectations. Atlanta Falcons, 50 dropbacks last week. They're typical, about 35 with Arthur Smith. That's a bloated stat. Listen, I know Kyle Pitts had a decent day, but that might have been contributing to some of it. But that's just something to keep in mind. Outside of Calvin Ridley, I'm still not feeling like the guys like Russell Gage in this area. Miami Dolphins, no one produced. They had 53 dropbacks last week. The fact that no one produced with that much volume, and now you get Will Fuller back, I think Parker and Waddle, I don't know. Maybe you should see what you can get for those kind of guys. Washington football team, another one, De'Ami Brown and Adam Humphries behind Logan Thomas. Listen, those guys had some decent, some production, but they didn't do enough with that kind of volume, so I'm not chasing them just yet. On the flip side, we want to talk about the teams that did not. Once again, New Orleans Saints. First week, it was because they were too big of a lead. This time, they get blown out. They're way under expectation for pass volume. This could be key. They could start seeing a little more competitive football games. We could see more from Jameis. We could see more from Marquez Callaway. Those kind of players, Juwan Johnson. It could be as this week, that Patriots game could be competitive. Maybe they get a little more pass volume. The Dallas Cowboys, after a huge week 1, have regressed all the way back down to 30 dropbacks. Their average is 42 for the season, we're hoping. And I think that's big news for like Cooper, who got banged up in that game. CeeDee Lamb performed decently well, but bigger days are ahead, especially if you're a Dak Prescott owner. All right, so let's talk about player trends. First off, Arizona Cardinals. The key one here. AJ Green kind of showed a little something last week. Still the second most routes, second most targets. But Rondeal Moore, the guy's the truth, led the team in targets, slot targets. His routes we just talked about went up 20%. Max Williams. I know this is crazy to say this, but Max Williams is a player to monitor. The guy ran 24 routes on 41 dropbacks. It's 59%. He's second on the team in targets last week, which makes no sense, but whatever. We actually had more targets than DeAndre Hopkins. Patrick Peterson is a thing this year, guys. Remember that. And ran all the tight end routes. So it's not just him and some other guy. I think that's key. Chase Edmonds versus James Conner. I know it's a long with targets, 9-0 for Edmonds for the season. That's key. Carry count 8-8 last week. Edmonds 46 routes on the season to 25 for a guy like James Conner. So I think, what's your thoughts right here? I think overall, to me, I like Edmonds' usage. He's getting used in the pass game. Max Williams, a little interesting. What's your thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, Edmonds is the running back for sure there. James Conner is getting some work. But look, man, we already talked about him. We don't need to spend more time on it. Rondeal Moore is the truth. I think he does pick up for AJ Green here. Obviously, it's going to be Nuke. Kirk is involved right now, but Rondeal Moore is a playmaker, man. Kyler Murray, when he scrambles, is looking for that guy underneath, and it's Rondeal Moore.
Yeah. All right, so the Atlanta Falcons, we just talked about Mike Davis, Cordero Patterson. Here's some numbers behind it. Last week, 9 carries, 2-7. Very close in that aspect. 27 routes to only 16 for Cordero Patterson, but still very close. Targets 7-7. This is interesting. These guys are getting targeted a lot. They're both in the same range. Kyle Pitts, 66% of his routes were either slot or out wide. That means he's not staying in line to block at all. They're using him a lot, so better days are ahead for this guy, especially the second half of the season. Russell Gage, a little bit better performance, but only ran around on 50%, 6% of dropbacks. I think he's a drop completely. What's your thoughts?
Kyle Pitts is coming. I really believe that. It was hard for me to draft him preseason in like the 4th round, the 5th round or whatever, because the draft capital is immense. But this kid's legit, man, and he's going to be very good for a long time. It's just a matter of time. He's a buy low target, I think, right now too. And as much as I might be nervous about Calvin Ridley because of the expectation, the Falcons can't go anywhere but up. And I think that they do. They've had 2 tough opponents so far. So get your hands on Kyle Pitts if you can. And look, we know what Matt Ryan is, but he's going to get his 4,000 plus yards. It's just a matter of the touchdowns there. So I'm okay.
Yeah, jumping down to the Ravens, only 5 players saw a target this week. That's the kind of narrow target distribution that will make these guys a little bit better for fantasy. So some good news there. Sammy Watkins, listen, he's going to have his weeks. Led the team in routes and also was second in targets. So he's going to have some weeks against better opponents. Marquis Brown, listen, this kid looks like he's a post-site sleeper. Because of the injury to Rashad Bateman, 10 targets, 48% of his routes were in the slot. I like that usage. A smaller guy, get him away from the outside corners. Tyson Williams, I know he's been productive, but 13 carries to 9 for Murray. It looks like they're still going to use a committee overall. Might be a problem later on in the season once they involve Le'Veon Bell. But what's your thoughts about the Ravens?
Tyson Williams is not a must start. Latavius Murray should be rostered. I'm actually a lot higher now on Hollywood Brown than I was preseason. And as long as Sammy Watkins is available, I think he's not a must start. Nobody in the passing game is a must start, but he is somebody that should be rostered. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to start getting bye weeks. Sammy Watkins is a great fill, in my opinion.
Yeah. So jump down to the Bill.
Keep an eye and roster now if you can. If you have an IR spot, go out and get Rashad Bateman, who's free right now. Draft him, pick him up, put him on your waiver wire because he's coming back in a couple of weeks too, and I think he's going to ball out.
Yeah, if Bateman comes back, it might be a good time to sell Marquise Brown high. I mean, if we know he's coming back and dominating and come and get some of those 1A, 1B looks, might be a time to sell Marquise Brown. But Buffalo Bills, Emmanuel Sanders, believe it or not, was the clear number 2 on this team, second in routes, second in targets, leads the team in deep targets with 5, but only has caught 1 so far. But those things are going to start getting better. He's someone that's interesting long-term. Gabriel Davis ran just 12 routes on the week. That was the 6th most on the team. Gabriel Davis could be dropped in 12 and 10 team leagues, in my opinion. And then Zach Moss versus Devin Singletary. Listen, Singletary still dominated, 23 routes to 7 for Moss. Moss did find the end zone last week twice, but 15 carries to 10, but it was a blowout. Remember that. So that's key in this whole thing, but it's still leading Devin Singletary. Thoughts on the Bills?
Yeah, once Tua went out, man, it was a crush, 34-0. I'm not sure about the Bills yet. 2 games, they look terrible versus the Steelers, dominated the Dolphins. I don't know what we're going to get yet. I'm kind of just holding tight on everybody, and I'm going to still fade that backfield personally.
Yep, gotcha. Panthers, DJ Moore solidified himself as the number 1.
Absolutely.
And he got 11 targets to only 5 for Robbie Anderson. I mean, he started slipping in drafts, but sure enough, the shower narrative between Anderson and and Darnold is not a thing. It's DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson did take over as the main slot guy. Believe it or not, it was supposed to be Terrace Marshall last week. 22 slot routes for Robbie Anderson, 58% of his routes. Leads the team in deep targets as well. So I think better days are ahead for Robbie Anderson. That usage. Last year I talked about his top 5 in yards per route run from the slot. I like that use. Terrace Marshall only ran 24 routes on 41 dropbacks. That's 58%. That's down from last week. He was outperformed by Brandon Zylestrup. Don't even know what that means, if that's even a person, but apparently he outproduced him. What's your thoughts on the Panthers?
Yeah, he caught that first touchdown, and I was just like, wait a minute. There's always somebody, right? There's always somebody that comes up on red zone. You're like, let me check my notes. It's like, what? Anyway, yeah, DJ Moore, man. Look, career high, 4 touchdowns so far in a couple seasons. He's on pace right now for 8. So let's get him 5-6 or whatever. We know he's going to be good for about 1175. That's his average. He's a beast. And again, I mean, Robbie Anderson's somebody I'm trying to move off of if I can, and Terrace Marshall's coming.
Yeah, man. So jumping down to the Bears, Andy Dalton's injury is key here. We're going to see what happens there. Sounds like we're going to see Justin Fields. Allen Robinson has not produced yet this season, but 52% of his routes are in the slot. He dropped a 35-yard touchdown. That's something to keep in the back of your mind. Debatable. Could be better days ahead. Darnell Mooney led the team in routes and targets last week. So this guy is starting to emerge in his second season. One of Sky's favorite. Cole Kmet, still third on the team in routes. 32-9 in week 1, but only 20-9 in week 2. I don't like that Jimmy Graham's starting to increase that percentage a little bit. Something to monitor. Demont, listen, week 1, he split pass game work with Damian Williams. This week 2, it went from 20 to 20 in week 1 for routes to 20 to 8. So good to see Demont getting more work. Touches 23-4. Demont's slowly getting that workhorse role again. What's your thoughts about the Bears?
Yeah, Allen Robinson did drop a potential deep touchdown there, but he also caught another one, right? And I think Allen Robinson's going to be fine. He's hyper-targeted. Darnell Mooney's coming as well. David Montgomery's – he's the man. I really just am curious how this offense is going to look with Justin Fields full-time. I think it's coming sooner than later. But Matt Nagy did come out and say that, Andy Dalton's the guy when he's healthy. I think that's just a PR stunt, but hopefully it's Fields quickly.
I hate Allen Robinson because I drafted Cooper Kupp and Amari Cooper in all my leagues except for one, because I was like, what? I don't have any exposure to Allen Robinson, and watching Cooper Kupp go off because I don't. Anyway, so I'm just saying, if you're in a league with me with Allen Robinson, you probably get him for cheaper. I just hate him right now. It is what it is. Anyway, Bengals, Tyler Boyd. I said last week I should quit fantasy if Tyler Boyd doesn't perform. Sky, what do you think? 14 points in PPR. Do you think that's still okay? I think we're good.
I think it's enough to not have you quit, because I asked you on the live show what would be enough to keep you around. I believe you said something about like you said 670-1 or something.
Yeah,
he was about there without the touch. So hold tight on Tyler Boyd. He's coming. But look, Jamar Chase is the truth.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd led the team in routes and production last week outside of the touchdown. So that's key. Jamar Chase is good. Only 4 targets, but versus 9 and 10 for Higgins and Boyd last week. He did take a back seat. He is that team's deep threat, though. So he's going to be a little boomer bust from time to time, but he keeps finding the end zone. So that's good news. T. Higgins led the team in targets through 2 weeks. Higgins looks to be solidified. It looks like the other guys are the ones kind of moving up and down. Higgins seems to be the consistent player. 3 receivers on this team, 70% of the targets on this season so far. That's concentrated targets. So these 3 guys are going to do really good, especially when that pass volume starts going way up. Mixon, 49 of 54 carries for the Bengals, 6 of 9 running back targets. It's all Joe Mixon all the time. He's a complete bell cow. I think better days are ahead for him as well. What's your thoughts about the Bengals?
Yeah, again, I mean, Joe Mixon's going to be fine. This whole team's good. Yeah, people are listening after the fact, right? Yeah. So 4 TDs, you're looking good. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to be just fine, man. Everybody's falling into place. Joe Burrow's getting his workload. And the reality is, man, their defense is coming back. And when the defense is bad, that offense is going to have to roll. So I think they're just fine.
Oh, my God. I'm down 0.2. Oh, my God. Anyway,
well, you'll have garbage time, too. You'll be fine.
Yeah, let's hope. Browns, listen, Jarvis Landry sprained his MCL. That is key. Odell Beckham should be back this week. I think that's going to be important. Hooper was tied for second on the team in routes and led the team in targets. That's one of Sky's guys to pick up. I think he's going to be a good pickup this week against the Bears. Donovan Peoples-Jones led the team in routes, but only had 1 target, but he did run a route on 82% of dropbacks. The key there, though, is there isn't a single person dominating dropbacks. The highest guy was at 82%. Rashard Higgins took over the Jarvis Landry role. 50% of his slots were in the snaps were in the slot. That could be something notable for next week. Rashad Higgins could be a fantasy sleeper with that Bears matchup. Nick Chubb is a baller. Just wanted to put that in there. And Kareem Hunt, 9 routes to 18 for Nick Chubb. I thought that was notable. Kareem Hunt's supposed to be the passing down back, but he actually had half the routes. What's your thoughts on the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb was slow going too, man. A big run late, almost 100 yards. He's going to be fine. Kareem Hunt was somebody in the Sunday show that I was repping a lot. Didn't get as much work in the end there because it was a closer game than I thought it was going to be. Look, the Browns were in trouble in the first half of this game, period. Houston was on them in the first half of this game. Baker also had an injury in this game. He should be okay moving forward, but that's definitely of note. The Browns are the Browns, man. You start the studs in there and maybe pick up Hooper, but I think the Browns are going to be fine.
Yeah, jumping down to the Cowboys. Zeke was third on the team in routes, so he's out there running all the routes with Gallup out, so that's interesting. Jarwin and Schultz split routes 16 to 15. That's not going to be good for their fantasy value. Cedric Wilson took over the slot, ran the 4th most routes, but not a lot of production there. But there's more pass volume we just talked about might be coming. Could be a sleeper in deeper leagues. Tony Pollard, 16 touches to 18 for Zeke, 24 routes for Zeke to 7 for Tony Pollard, so still low leaning Zeke. But Tony Pollard performing. What's your thoughts on the Cowboys?
I'm a little bit nervous about Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper got beat up in this game, and I kept saying, I mean, you're a Cooper guy. I've been a Lamb guy all summer long, and I know we can't just talk about injuries, but if Cooper does happen to miss any time at all, CeeDee Lamb, I think, is going to go nuts. And then keep an eye on Cedric Wilson, who's free in all leagues as well. Might be worth that, like Michael Gallup spot while he's out another month. They're going to be fine. It is frustrating as a Zeke manager because you're expecting the bell cow work we've been used to, but Tony Pollard's the truth. We've been waiting for it for 2 or 3 years. And now, I mean, everybody in Dallas is basically saying they're going to minimize the role early for Zeke because they need him healthy with the extra game this year. So I think halfway through the season, we might get more Zeke, but early on, man, I just wouldn't expect those 25 touches that we were hoping for as a top 5 pick.
Yeah, Broncos. Cortland Sutton was the alpha in this game. His
Dominated.
was too. 12 targets, but he also had 5 targets of 20 yards or more downfield. Caught 2 of them. Led the team in slot production, which is ironic too. That's an awesome usage. This guy's a buy. Noah Fant, number 2 pass catcher with Jerry Jeudy out, 6 targets. That could be something notable for him moving forward. Tim Patrick did score in this game, so that's good. He ran as the clear number 2. Hamler did run as the slot guy, did not perform, unfortunately, based on our predictions, but it is what it is, had 3 targets. Melvin Gordon versus Javonte Williams update. 22 routes for Gordon, 10 for Williams. Targets 2 to 1, but the touches 15 to 14, right down the middle. This week, Williams won the yardage total 74 to 69, though, so still very close. What's your thoughts about the Broncos?
I just still think it's coming, man. I mean, it's been 50-50, but I think Javonte Williams is coming quickly. So if you haven't acquired him, they might be a cheap option. Jonathan Taylor being a 50-50 for quite a while, even when Marlon Mack went down and exploded down the stretch there. So keep an eye on Javonte Williams. And look, man, you and I were on KJ Hamler last week. It was Tim Patrick that caught the touchdown. Either way, it's going to be the alpha Cortland Sutton. Looked shaky in week 1 coming off the knee. Obviously, he's ready to go, and that's the guy you're looking to get. And look, he could be a cheap option as well, even off the big game. So keep an eye on Sutton.
Yeah, Texans. Tyrod Taylor hurt his knee. He's out for week. Hurt his hamstring. My apologies. He's out for week 3. It's going to be Davis Mills. Love the Panthers DFS pick. Brandon Cooks. Listen, guys, he is an alpha. This guy had 14 targets. No other player had 2 targets, more than 2. He had 14. Led the team in slot targets as well. Great uses. Nico Collins fell to the number 4 wide receiver on the depth chart this week.
Doesn't make sense.
2 routes.
Doesn't make sense.
Hey, this is why we do this, guys. That's why we break it down for the people.
It's my guy, too. Just like
yeah, I know. Akins and Brown split work, tight end work down the middle. That's not what you want for fantasy. We brought that up last week with Farrell Brown. David Johnson, 15 routes on 31 dropbacks. It's the passing down back. I don't like David Johnson. If you could sell him, I would recommend you do it. Mark Ingram still the lead ball carrier, 14 carries to 11 combined for Lindsey and David Johnson. What you thought about the Texans?
Look, man, Lindsey, I'm telling you, I think Lindsey is the best athletic running back in that squad, but you have Ingram and you have Johnson around there. So I'm staying away from the entire thing. I didn't draft any Texans, not one. I have Brandon Cooks on a dynasty league, so he's a leftover, but I have 0 shares of anybody on Houston. I'm telling you, Davis Mills is a kid I liked a lot coming out of Stanford, but like a 2-3 year project. If he's thrown right in there, I just think it's terrible. And yeah, they're going to feed Brandon Cooks because they have to. So he's a great guy to add right now, but Houston's in trouble.
Yep. Carson Wentz injured his other ankle, so that's 2 ankle sprains or 2 ankle injuries, whatever. Not great. Michael Pittman emerged as the top guy against this game, 11 targets. Zach Pascal still involved heavily, 6 targets, found the end zone again. Jack Doyle, believe it or not, Captain Jack in 2018. I love this guy. But he emerges the tight end, went 33 routes to only 13 for Mo Alley. 8 targets in this game. That's something to monitor to see if it's not a one-hit wonder. Running backs went from 13 targets in week 1 to 4 in week 2. That's what we expected. Marlon Mack is now involved. Ran 7 routes, 6 opportunities. That's just too much. With Naheem Hines, only 1 carry in this game. Your thoughts about the Colts?
Yeah, I mean, you brought it up right at the beginning of the show. You asked me my trade target. I had to get myself off of Jonathan Taylor because I'm trying to hold faith. I know what Jonathan Taylor's capable of if he gets the work, but now that we have 3 running backs plus involved with his workload, it's making me nervous. I'm going to keep holding Jonathan Taylor, but you might want to get out if it looks like more work in week 3. Keep an eye on Marlon Mack.
Yeah, absolutely. Jaguars injured James O'Shaughnessy, heartbroken, end the show right there.
Terrible news.
What could have been? I'm not joking. I'm pissed. Anyway. Marvin Jones, clear number 1. This guy is definitely proven 10 routes. The most routes on the team, 10 targets. He is clearly the number 1. DJ Chark's targets fell from 12 to 3 this week. We talked about that in our last week's show. James Robinson, 11 carries to only 2 for Carlos Hyde. So it looks better for him this week. 14 touches to 4. So I think James Robinson is looking up. What's your thoughts about the Jags?
Yeah, we saw the regression coming overall for DJ Chark. Laviska Shenault got beat up in this game as well. Not into the running backs here. And look, man, shouts out to our boys, James and Phil that came on, Believe in Jags podcast. You and I were on just a couple weeks before kickoff. They were telling us, man, they're Jaguars insiders, and they were telling us Marvin Jones is the number 1. It's not Chark. It's not Shenault. Fantasy wants it to be Shenault. Fantasy wants it to be Chark, but it's old man Jones. He was getting it done. And once Shenault went down the sideline there for a touchdown, he's the guy you're after. Still might be available in a lot of leagues because he was that number 3 coming in fantasy terms. Clearly the number 1, though, in Jacksonville.
You know what? Miko Harmon, we're talking about the Chiefs now. Miko Harmon, he tied for the team lead in targets with 8. His routes are number 2 for wide receivers. So we're going to start seeing that production. Very good. I know Robinson scored the touchdown, but it's Miko Harmon emerging as that clear number 2. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 15 routes to 11 for Darrell Williams on 32 dropbacks. It's a little concerning. He was not targeted in the game. Red flags everywhere. 13 carries, though, overall versus 16 overall total for the team. So 13 to 3 versus Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams isn't the option. He went 0.7 yards per carry last week. 0.7. So trust me, CEH will get another opportunity to get him in your lineup. Your thoughts about the Chiefs?
Well, again, I mean, we talked early in the show, but CEH is not automatic right now. And honestly, listen to other podcasts and just, reading the Twitter vibes, everyone's freaking out because when you have a top running back that spoils, everyone freaks out. But a lot of people are like, he's not droppable, but they're looking to trade him away for peanuts. I mean, beans right now, and it's like, don't do that. Like CEH for Elijah Mitchell and stuff like that, right? It's like, Myles Gaskin, Damian Harris, stuff like that. Like, don't do that stuff yet. But if he pulls another one of these in week 3, Bobby, you got to get out before it's too late. I know it's the Chiefs. I know it's supposed to be Brian Westbrook, quote unquote, and Andy Reid. But if it isn't, it isn't. So I know the hype was there, but get out before it's too late. But I'll hold it one more week. Baltimore's very good. And snaps in week 1, CEH was in there for every snap, just not getting the touchdowns. We know the Chiefs could go off any given night. I'm going to keep them for another week for sure.
You know what this means? Give me the link to the league. Do you know what you're talking about?
No idea, Tiger. We don't have a league for you, but you can join us on Sunday morning for your start sits.
Bam, baby. All right, Raiders right now, week 2 key player trends. Raiders moving on. Bryan Edwards, 1 less route than Darren Waller, 3 for 40. Production's not there, but the routes are there. That's the first step. I like to see that. Henry Ruggs, 5 for 113 and 1, led the team in slot routes, tied for second with 6 targets. Yes, he had a 61-yard touchdown, but for some reason, I like more of this, a 4 for 52 otherwise. That's just solid production. This guy's, if he can get you that consistent 5 for 50 and then pop off once in a while, that's going to make him more of a consistent fantasy asset. Kenyon Drake, 7 carries to 13 for Peyton Barber, 1.9 yards per carry and 6 targets. This Raiders ground game is a disaster. Your thoughts on the Raiders?
It's the offensive line, man. Everyone talks about the Steelers. Nobody talks about the Raiders. Naji Harris is special. We're going to get to the Steelers in a minute, but the Raiders have no chance. If it was Kenyon Drake every single snap, it would have been a much better line, obviously, but he would have been able to actually get some momentum going on. Peyton Barber, come on, John. Look, if Darren Waller is somebody this week, if he is somebody that you can trade George Kittle straight up for because of name brand, or maybe Mark Andrews and a piece, right? Somebody that's gone off over the last couple of weeks, low level, and you can get a Darren Waller this week, I would absolutely try to make those moves.
Yeah, Rams, Darrell Henderson injured his ribs, but he sounds like he's going to be fine. It's a pain tolerance thing. Only 5 players saw a target in this game. Target concentration. Love that. Cooper Kupp, forget about it. This guy's awesome. Don't even need to bring it up. 11 targets on 30 attempts for Matthew Stafford. Tyler Higbee still ran the second most routes on the team. Was the only tight end once again to see a target, but nothing happened really overall. Van Jefferson tied for the league in routes. D-Jax did not run a route. He didn't even run a route on the week.
Yeah,
that means
weird.
Van Jefferson's the clear number 3 now. That should help him long term. Your thoughts on the Rams?
Yeah, Van Jefferson obviously had that big touchdown week 1, and you're looking more boom or bust for him, but he's definitely somebody, especially in like DFS or something on a good matchup. Look, man, we talked Robert Woods. I have a T. Higgy that's T. Higgins. You have a T. Higgy that's Tyler Higbee. Quick temperature check on Tyler Higbee right now, Bobby.
I'm not worried about it. It's fine. They've been low on pass volume the first 2 weeks. First week he was good. This week he wasn't. It is what it is. It's fine. All right, Chargers. Let's talk about this. Mike Williams, the guy's the truth. Listen, the breakout's happening. It's a contract year. Got 11, 10 targets last week. Jalen Guyton's still running ahead of Josh Palmer. If you need that deep, Justin Herbert turns the corner and this pass volume goes up. Guyton is the guy to own in that scenario. Cook ran 29 routes to only 10 for Donald Parham. Cook did have a touchdown called back last week. He was second on the team in slot routes, so that's interesting. He's getting good usage. Austin Eckler went from 0 targets to 9 in week 2, and Justin Jackson emerged as the RB2 this week ahead of Larry Roundtree. Thoughts on the Chargers?
Yeah, Eckler's just fine. And if you somehow bought low on the dip or sold somehow on accident because you were worried about it, joke's on you. Austin Eckler's amazing. I think my boy Herbert turns it around. I'm not one for victory laps. I save those for like March after the season. But one I'm going to take early here is Mike Williams. And he was my breakout in the AFC West. And I basically said, if he's healthy, I mean, Keenan Allen's the guy, but Mike Williams is a difference maker on that team. Absolutely dominating so far. I love it, man. I just hope this guy can stay healthy for a season.
Yeah, Tua's injury is tough for the Dolphins jumping down to Miami. 53 dropbacks on the week. That's big time, but no one emerged with all that usage. That's very concerning. Jalen Waddle was still the slot receiver, saw 4 targets on the inside. Mike Gesicki bounced back a little bit this week, 6 targets. Third on the team in routes, which is good to see. 85% of his routes were in the slot. That's the usage you want for Mike Gesicki. So some maybe better days ahead with better matchups. Myles Gaskin, only 24 routes on 53 dropbacks. 5 carries in the first half to 3 for the other running backs. So only 5 carries from him in the first half to 3 the other guys. He's in a committee. What's your thoughts about the Dolphins?
Look, man, if Tua is going to be out for any significant time, I'm actually really worried about this. They looked horrendous with Jacoby Brissett in there. I'm not a big Dolphins guy in general. Will Fuller coming in is going to mix everything up, and Mike Gesicki's been somebody that I've been fading anyway. Myles Gaskin still not impressed. Jalen Waddle's somebody I'm willing to play because he's a difference maker, can take it to the house on the slant. I'm not really excited about anybody else on the Dolphins, especially if it's not Tua.
Yeah, Vikings going to Minnesota. KJ Osborne's the number 3 pass catcher in this offense. He ran a route on 24 of 35 dropbacks. He's the primary slot receiver as well. This just means that Tyler Conklin can be dropped. I thought Tyler Conklin would emerge. They use a lot of tight ends. It's not the case anymore. The third receiver is now alpha in that offense behind Thielen and Jefferson. Conklin can be moved on from, find another tight end streamer. Thoughts on the Vikings?
Dalvin Cook makes me nervous. He's arguably my favorite running back outside of Alvin Kamara, just watching him play. But when this guy gets hurt, anything, and I'm not saying he's a drama queen at all or anything like that. I'm not going to put that on him because these guys face injuries that people like you and I could never imagine getting hit by grown-ass men at 300 pounds. But this guy gets injured. He's on the field for like a commercial break. I mean, it's a problem. And every time he goes down, you're thinking, oh, shit, Dalvin Cook's going to be out. Pick up Alexander Madison. And then you flip the channel, you come back, and Dalvin Cook's in there running a route, So I'm worried about him. Alexander Madison has to be on all rosters right now.
Go get Madison if he's on another team. Trade for him.
I agree.
Give a little extra just to have that security blanket. It's totally worth it. Jumping down to New England, the Patriots, 6 players have between 3 and 6 targets. This is the opposite of that concentrated pass volume. I don't like that for anybody. Jacoby Myers is still leading the team in routes and slot routes and deep targets as well. The usage is good, but it's much lower, so I don't like that. Kendrick Bourne still ran more routes than Jonnu Smith.
That's my guy.
Jonnu Smith was 6th on the team in routes, 14 to 25 for Hunter Henry. That is not good usage. He was our fade this week at tight end position. James White tied for the team lead with 6 targets. That's good for his PPR value. Damian Harris, listen, Rondé Stevenson was inactive There was no one touching him.
Fumbles, man.
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on the Patriots?
Yo, James White. We could finally get my man back in the look. Dominated in the pass game 2 weeks in a row. We know that happens. Guess what he did, though? Ran for a touchdown, right? You don't see that very often from James White. Should be rostered in all formats, but he's, I think, a great flex position in PPR leagues, of course, now with Ramondre Stevenson in the doghouse. Damian Harris is a beast, dude. That touchdown run against the Dolphins, 6 different guys evaded a tackle, took on a tackle, missed a tackle, whatever for the Dolphins. Dude was running angry, trying to prove himself because he also fumbled, but Bill gave him a second chance, dominated here, and I think he's going to be good moving forward. But those 2 running backs need to be rostered and at least flexes moving forward.
Yep. All right, New Orleans Saints. Marcus Callaway is still leading the team in routes, but no production. We just talked about the pass volume. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. This team is not throwing the ball a lot the first 2 weeks. It's going to go up at some point. Marcus Callaway could be someone that you pick up and stash if he was dropped. Juwan Johnson, 16 routes to 11 for Adam Troutman. That's good to see him actually involved more. Led the team in slot routes and slot production. I like that usage for him. He also got downfield targets, 20-plus yards. So that's usage. It could be something to monitor. This offense uses tight ends. Tony Jones, not as productive this week. Only saw 3 of the 11 carries. There wasn't a lot of running for Alvin Kamara either, but he really has a bad floor. So he's a tough guy to start until Kamara, if there's an injury to him. Your thoughts on the Saints?
33 total yards for Alvin Kamara?
Not
Yikes. Yikes. That definitely makes me nervous. He's still Alvin Kamara, so I'm not hitting the panic button. But what I am trying to do is I'm trying to possibly go get him if I can. If somebody is nervous, I'm looking to go get a top 5 running back, top 3 in my opinion still. But this tells you that this is Jameis Winston's offense, not Drew Brees, all right? If Jameis sinks, this offense sinks, and they can't rely on Alvin Kamara necessarily. So a little bit nervous on that end, but Saints, I think, are going to be just fine. Another guy to stash on your IR and just hold him if you got an empty spot, Michael Thomas.
Yeah. He's okay as an IR stash instead of a 7th-round pick, so I agree. Barkley going to the Giants. We saw this usage go up. Week 1, 16 routes on 43 dropbacks, 42%. Week 2, 71% of dropbacks he ran a route. That's 30% bump from Barkley. The time to buy is now. Go buy Saquon Barkley. You can get him for cheap. Sterling Shepard led the team. This guy is the alpha. This guy led the team in routes and targets. He has elite usage with Daniel Jones. He is the slot receiver as well in this offense. Kenny Golladay, to me, is a second-half buy. We're starting to see slow growth. He's starting to get more work in the passing game as well. 8 targets this week. What's your thoughts about the Giants?
Man, your boy Sterling Shepard, trade target, right? I mean, like, it's the truth. And we've always been waiting for the talent and the volume. He's getting it right now. Yeah. I still think people, including me, still don't quite respect him in the trade market. I think you could be able to go acquire him for a lot cheaper than right now he's producing. And look, DJ, man, 95 rushing yards, should have been more than that. It was called back on a hold. I think that he could absolutely produce here, and he's a great streaming quarterback too. You're just going to have to take your lumps, and you mentioned it. Go get Saquon if you can. I personally am still waiting it out, but he's a great guy to have in your roster if you can get him for cheap right now.
Yeah. So jumping down to the Jets. Listen, not a lot to say about the Jets, but Braxton Berrios leads the team in targets for 2 weeks. This could be a thing for Jamison Crowder. Maybe Zach Wilson leans to that slot receiver. Just something to note. Maybe you can get Jamison Crowder for the cheap. You might be even buying waivers. Could be something down the road. Michael Carter is emerging finally. Week 2, 15 routes to 14 for Ty Johnson. First half carries, because this game was a blowout. 6 for Carter, 6 for Johnson, only 2 for Coleman. We're starting to see that emergence. Maybe Michael Carter's a buy right now. Your thoughts on the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets, again, another team that I'm just kind of fading across the board. Look, the reality is they went up against the rookie crusher in Bill Belichick, right? Like, the Jets had no chance. We tried to really close to on Sunday, and it just didn't work out. That's another miss for us. I mean, we should have kind of been involved with that more with the rookie quarterback situation. But honestly, I'm fading all Jets for right now. Yes, Crowder is probably a waiver pickup for now in the slot. He's been dominant in the slot over the years for the Jets. But honestly, there's nobody on the team that I'm excited about outside of Corey Davis, who I do think is a buy low target and should have much better days moving forward when they don't play the Patriots.
Yeah, I got you. Is the Eagles, Zach Ertz is in the COVID list. He could miss this week's game, so things could change. But listen, so far, Devonta Smith is clear alpha receiver. Him and Rager, the only 2 guys that saw over 2 targets last week. Quez Watkins, 117 yards receiving, 2 receptions. It's a big game, but only ran 15 routes on 31 dropbacks. Don't be chasing that production. That's not a thing. Zach Ertz versus Dallas Goedert, route 17 to 14 this week for Ertz. Ertz ran more routes than Goddard. Blows my mind. 2 targets to 2. Miles Sanders versus Gainwell. Listen, I know you're a Gainwell guy. I respect that. But Sanders was third on the team in routes, 18-9 for Gainwell, 13 carries to 6, and 55 yards to 14 on the ground. So clearly Miles Sanders is a guy, but Gainwell is someone to stash. Your thoughts on the Eagles?
I mean, Gainwell's my guy, right? But Devonta Smith is going to be great moving forward. Goddard kind of makes me nervous. Well, Zach Ertz is in there. Zach Ertz played well. He actually should have had a touchdown, missed it. We do have a Eagles question here from Michael Chapp. I want to jump into that really quickly, Bobby, before we move on. We're talking Eagles. Quick question here. Got a major question. I have Herbert and someone has Hurts on their bench. Do I pull the trigger, set up a trade for Hurts? Do I set up a trade Hurts for Herbert straight up? This person has Murray on their bench as the QB1 already. Do I pull the trigger and set up a trade Hurts for Herbert straight up? So do you want to keep Hurts or do you want to go for Herbert here?
He's saying he's going to trade for Herbert, right?
Right.
He has Herbert. He wants to trade for Hurts because he wants to trade Herbert. That's how I'm reading it. I have Herbert. And someone has Hurts. So my problem is you're not going to get that trade. I think realistically you need to see this kid's team and say, all right, where is he weak at receiver? Where's your strengths on your team? Do you have a deep wide receiver team? Do you have a deep running back team? You need to upgrade him a little bit somewhere because I don't think you can make that swap right now. I don't think Hurts is way too red hot and then Herbert's kind of struggling a little bit. So if you can make the trade him. I'd rather have Hurts long term. I love the rushing upside, but right now I don't think you can get it. So you have to look at that team and see where he needs improvements. Maybe give him like a wide receiver 3, a running back 3 to boost up that trade value.
I agree. And he's already got Murray. So maybe don't even trade your quarterbacks. Just bundle up if you don't have to trade the second quarterback and keep both those quarterbacks if you can. But I agree with Bob. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you. And make sure to tune in Sunday morning for start sits 3 hours before kickoff.
All right. Steelers, here we go. Deontay Johnson injury, last play of the game, meaningless, I know, but it sounds like he avoided a serious injury. This guy
it looked brutal. It did look bad.
Pro Football Doc said he's probably going to be all right, and there's nothing came out just yet. But 12 targets. This guy is an absolute target hog. It's crazy. Najee Harris, listen, I was wrong about him last week, but I hate how I was wrong. I was right and wrong. I don't care what anybody says. He made one play, 25-yard touchdown. If you're a Najee Harris truther, you're going to love that game. I see that game as a huge red flag, sell high, personally, in my opinion. But anyway, third most routes, 25 reception yard touchdown. And I know this story about negative stats, 56 yards on 14 other touches. It's not like he's down. All right. Anyway, but Ericky Brown and Pat Freiermuth is something notable. Freiermuth, 4 targets to only 1 for Ebron. He ran 23 routes to 20. It's starting to see this rookie emerging a little bit more. He could be someone to look at down the stretch. We saw guys like Cole Kmet get more work down the stretch last year for a rookie. But any thoughts about the Steelers and takeaways for the game?
Outside of one big play, Chase Claypool didn't do much for me this week. Juju has a nice floor, but doesn't have the ceiling. And Deontay Johnson's the dude. Let's just hope he's healthy. Another buy low candidate. And I know, Bobby, you and I disagree on this player in this situation. I am absolutely looking to go acquire Naji Harris for cheaper than what I think he will be worth eventually. He's getting the volume, 5 targets. If you need it, look, stop. I think the problem is here. Stop, like Saquon Barkley, stop thinking of him as a top 10 running back. Think of him as a solid RB2 with upside. That's how I'm doing it. If I do that and you go and grab him that way, that is going to be upside for me. And I think the second half of the season for the Steelers could be fantastic. And Najee Harris has shown you his ability and he's getting the work. So I'm going after that.
All righty, 49ers. I know all your RBs are hurt again. How does it feel? It's ridiculous. These guys, you're going to have to play the waiver wire this week again. It looks like Elijah Mitchell should be fine this week. Maybe Sermon's concussion, he's out. Maybe Elijah Mitchell's a bounce back this week. Who knows? Debo Samuel's the guy, man. This guy leads his team in targets. Brandon Ayuk was back in the lineup. He ran the 3rd most routes on the team, but only saw 2 targets. Not really sure what's going on there, but maybe he gets better with a little more time. George Kittle led the team in routes. Like I just brought this up here, 25 yards after the catch, only 17 receiving yards, -2, yards per reception, 4.3. Not sure what's going on there with that usage, but what's your thoughts about your 49ers?
All right, we good? You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, I'm frozen on my side.
All right, we lost Scott. All right, so we're just going to break down a couple more of these guys. For Seattle Seahawks, Gerald Everett, 28 routes to only 9 for Will Disley this week. That is key. That means that he is now emerging as the tight end 1 in this offense. That's good news moving forward. Freddie Swain, 3rd most routes on the team and targets with 5, led the team in slot routes. This guy is getting deep targets. He's getting slot routes. He's emerging as the number 3. So with Eskridge out for a while. He could be someone you find on your waiver wires. Chris Carson, 13 of 14 carries. Guy's an absolute workhorse. Buccaneers, Gronk ran more routes than Antonio Brown. Gronk's the real deal. Until O.J. Howard starts getting more involved, he only had 6 routes this week, but that's up from 1 the previous week. So monitor that situation. There might be a sell-high window for Gronk down the line, but right now, ride the wave. He's hot. Fournette ran 17 routes to only 5 for Gio. Fournette's still the passing down back for the foreseeable future. He had 4 targets, and he also had 11 carries to only 6 for Ronald Jones. Fournette might be someone you can buy. He's starting to get a little more work around the court. He could be a buy, someone you scoop up as an RB3 for your leagues. Jumping down to Tennessee, Julio still got it. I'm a little concerned about A.J. Brown and him coexisting in the same week, but like Scott brought up earlier, 4 drops for A.J. Brown. So I think there is an opportunity for a buy low for A.J. Brown, but also I think this offense as a whole is going to start clicking at some point with Todd Downing. Henry, 21 routes on 45 dropbacks, 6 targets. That's unheard of. If this guy's going to start taking over more of that passing game work, look out. That 40-point week could be something more happening more. Anthony Ferguson did not run a route this week, guys. This is big news because a guy named Michael Pruitt is someone I want you guys to keep in the back of your minds. This guy paced the team in tight end routes and tight end targets this week. He's a 92nd percentile 40-yard dash, 89th speed score, 87th percentile burst score. We know this offense likes to use tight ends. Monitor him, keep him in the back of your mind. Maybe when he has a good matchup, you can stream him. Final team, Washington football team. Listen, this team had 50 dropbacks last week, so I think De'Ami Brown and Adam Humphries had nice days, but not good enough. When a team drops back that much, you need elite usage. It did not happen, so I'm fading those guys. I'm scooping them up. Logan Thomas, 52 routes. The guy's an every down player, led the team in slot routes as well, so keep that in mind. Logan Thomas should have better days in better matchups. Antonio Gibson, 27 routes to only 26 for J.D. McKissick. So he's still out there running routes. He's involved. You're going to see that passing game usage, even though that this week the targets went to J.D. So just keep that in mind for a guy like Antonio Gibson. He's a buy low. And finally, 20 carries to only 1 for J.D. McKissick. So this guy's an elite bell cow. Better days are ahead for this. So that's really all our prayer trends for all these games. Not sure if Sky's going to jump back in here. But pretty much, guys, this is the point of this episode. We're just trying to break this down. But before we go, we want to remind everybody, listen, we got our Sunday live show. If you are watching right now and you need start-sit questions every Sunday for 3 hours, we dedicate 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We dedicate 3 hours a day to our listeners to start-sit questions. And if you guys listen, stay with us. I know we get hundreds of questions, so you got to jump on, stay with us for 15, 20 minutes. You can, but if you guys want to jump the line, there's a super chat function you can use. We recommend any donations are thanked, and we love that. But if you do, that jumps you to the line. You get your questions answered right away. But that's it, guys, for our episode today. Sky is back. Hey, Sky, how's it going, buddy? I finished up without you. I felt alone. That's all right. Listen, all good. Sky, do you have anything else you want to bring up before we head out?
Yeah, I missed a couple teams, and I appreciate that. Bobby, thank you for going on, and I'm sorry that I bailed on that there. A big one here is Julio Jones, obviously, has come up. Derrick Henry is worth the wait, clearly. And look, just keep an eye on A.J. Brown. We mentioned it earlier, but I think he's going to be fine. Another buy low candidate. And then the Washington football team is another one I wanted to check in on. Terry McLaurin's the truth, but he is somebody that I could potentially sell high. If I could maybe move a Terry McLaurin and a piece for like a Tyreek Hill, I know it sounds ridiculous, but if I can make a move like that, I'm willing to, because I just don't trust Taylor Heineke long-term. But I think Allen Robinson is what Terry McLaurin could be this season. Hyper-targeted, like low yardage, but going to have touchdown upside. We'll see what happens there. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. Sorry for the glitch there. We'll catch you Sunday morning, as Bobby let you know about. Once again, this is the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast, a.k.a. TCK Pod. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Jordan and I will be breaking down the week 2 action and give you all of the game recaps with the scores and some more highlights from that. So make sure you tune in once again tomorrow night. Hope everybody enjoyed Monday Night Football and the Sunday action. Bobby and I will be back with you at the end of the week. Once again, catch us on Sunday morning, 3 hours before kickoff. For Bobby Lamarco, I'm your host, Sky Guasco. We'll catch you next time. We are out of here.